All right. Good.
All right. Okay. So tomorrow I will bring my external microphone that I packed and then forgot to bring with me to this room.
Thank you, sir.
Perfect.
RJon, if you want to go just a little bit more on an angle, there's a little minor corner I'm still seeing that will make everyone's life better.
Over here?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Just the way you were going, just a tad. Perfect.
Okay.
And by the way, that helps the light 1,000 times on your face.
Oh,
it does.
Look at that. Tanya fucking music to the rescue.
In her pajamas.
Okay. So we ready to get started?
So we are ready to get started with how to build a $1 million networking machine, referral machine, how to build a $1 million referral machine for lawyers. Someone needs to have one of those things.
Oh, I actually do. Hang on. It's just on the other side of the room. Apparently my daughter stole my clapper, so, you know.
All right. The automatic referral machine.
Oh, hang on one second. I can't hear you.
$1 million referral machine for lawyers. Heidi?
That's what I'm referring it to it as, $1 million referral machine for lawyers, right?
That is what the book contract with the publisher says. So we should probably just call it that.
I think we should. I think that's a good decision.
I probably should have told you this story before, Heidi, that the publisher of the last book that had us do an audiobook, we were so delayed in producing it that they finally hired a guy that used to work with me named Jimbo to lock me and Danny in a room for like a week and like basically just make us do the video. And so I don't know why, but for some reason we just decided to blame Jimbo for everything, including all of our frustrations with the publisher.
So did Jimbo not show up today to set up your room?
Oh no, Jimbo doesn't work with me anymore.
I'm just speaks. Okay, so wait.
And we spent the whole 10 days basically just pranking him and teasing him and harassing him and blaming him for everything. But like he was a good sport about it because he knew that we knew that we knew that he knew. Anyway.
Okay.
There were bongo drums involved.
Oh my gosh. I have a question. Carly, are you going to are you going to start the intro?
That is what we said.
Okay.
Are we good to start the intro?
Are we good?
It's possible that there's someone who's going to watch this and think this is like really scripted and like, oh my God, those are all great. Look at all that banter that got scripted. No, this is just how it goes. All right. We have an 11 a.m. tea time. Let's go.
Okay, let's do it. Here we go. Welcome to the $1 Million Referral Machine for lawyers. This show is for you if you're a lawyer whose work does good in the world, and you know that your law firm could do even more good in the world if you could attract more clients. It's a fact that lawyers have been using old-fashioned networking to build huge books of business for generations. It's also a fact that it's precisely because so many lawyers have become so enamored today with social media and digital marketing that old-fashioned networking is working better than ever in the legal industry. Networking can be used to reliably build your first $1 million or several $1 million book of business. It works in every single legal practice area imaginable. It levels the playing field because it requires very little working capital for a small law firm to develop and maintain a highly profitable networking program. A good networking program contributes to being able to have more reliable revenue for a small law firm, which cascades into so many other benefits for the business. And it's fun. Yes, you heard that right. When done right, networking can and should be fun, especially if you're an introvert. Hands down, networking is the absolute best way for a lawyer who's an introvert to build and maintain a huge book of business. And now, because this is the first episode, let me give you just about a minute and a half of background. Because it's not what you might be expecting, since this is not really a typical podcast. This is more of a performance art piece. So Dr. Ivan Misner is the founder of BNI, that's Business Network International, which with more than 11,000 chapters worldwide is the world's largest referral networking organization. And RJon Robins was once a struggling solo lawyer with no money. And he used BNI style networking to jumpstart his career. And today he's president of How to Manage a Small Law Firm, which with more than 600 of some of the most successful law firms in the country under management, How to Manage a Small Law Firm is the leading provider of management services for small law firms in the world. So one day, Sir Richard Branson, yes, that's Sir Richard Branson, introduced Ivan to RJon, and they eventually decided to co-author this book together. And to be sure that these two busy entrepreneurs could actually get their ideas down on paper instead of just having the world's most profitable conversation about networking a small law firm into a 7-figure business all alone on the beach, they enlisted the support of legendary book wrangler Heidi Justo to interview them both and help them make this book into a reality. So this book is being written in parallel, based on Dr. Misner's amazingly effective book-in-a-box method, which RJon used to bang out the outline over one very long breakfast in Paris. And now Heidi is going to interview them both in parallel to get their take on each of the big ideas that any small law firm owner can use to build a huge book of business for yourself, even if you have no working capital, even if you have very little free time, even if your law firm is already a 7-figure business and you want to grow it into an 8-figure, and even if you're just graduating from law school and you haven't even started your own law firm yet. So each episode of this show will have 2 parts. The first part is going to give you the opportunity to be like the proverbial fly on the wall, to watch and listen in as a best-selling book comes to life. And then during the second part of each chapter, we'll open the lines for your questions, both live and the questions that our audience has already begun to write in with as soon as word of this project got out. So with that, let's go ahead. We'll join Heidi and RJon in the studio as they cover why old-fashioned networking works especially well in today's digital world, and a simple business model for creating predictable revenue for your law practice using only networking and a very small budget. Over to you, Heidi.
Thank you so much, Carly. And RJon, it's a pleasure to be talking with you again. Your energy is unmatched. So I'm so excited to be here with you. And really, the last time we met, I got to attend or meet in person. The first time I met you in person was you invited me to one of your LQMs, which
Live quarterly meeting.
yes, blew me away. It was like, wow, you have a whole team, but you single-handedly created like business school for lawyers. So I am so excited to be talking with you and working on this book with you. In Ivan, because as someone who's worked on many books about business success and networking and referrals, I absolutely have drank the Kool-Aid and know that this is where it's at with networking. But as Carly said, let's just kind of jump right in with one of the first things we're going to cover in the book. And we've already had some conversations around this, but I'm kind of circling back to that about why old-fashioned networking works well, especially in today's digital world. And the whole, traditional networking versus digital. So since the last time we spoke specifically on this topic, AI has continued to grow in prominence. Just this morning, I read an article about a viral video of a man kissing an AI robot, right? So AI is just growing and growing in prominence, and we talk about it every day. So business owners might perceive that some things have changed because of AI. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Like, what are your updated thoughts for 2025? What do you think law firm owners, I should say, are getting right and wrong about AI? How will AI change how people grow their business? Is AI just another thing that comes up and it doesn't have as much change? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a whole other book we write together. Like, seriously,
Right?
it could be
I
a whole
know.
other book, but we better write it quick because AI is changing so fast. Here's the thing about AI. And I have dived headfirst deep into the world of AI, but only very recently. So I just want to give that disclaimer.
Mhm.
It's only very recently that I myself personally have really dived into AI. My wife, who is the co-founder of this business with me, um, has been working with AI for quite some time, and she's been telling me about AI for a long time, and I just only recently began to take it as seriously as I am now. Um, so the first thing that I did was I bought a ticket and spent a week in Vancouver at the TED conference. So the 2025 TED conference um, in Vancouver is called Humanity Reimagined.
Mm.
And we had the former CEO of Google there, we had the current CEO of OpenAI there, and like the most brilliant AI experts in the world from all over the place for 5 days, really talking about the dangers, the risks, the opportunities, the current state of AI. And I'll say this, um, AI is here. It's not a fad. Uh, it's it has already changed the world in ways that people don't really understand or appreciate for the most part.
Mhm.
Um, I got to go back and talk about a little bit about my background to give you some context for this. Um, I first reported for duty at the Florida Bar Law Office Management Assistance Service, the LOMAS program, back on August 24th, 1999. Right. So I've been around, if you get my meaning, right? Um, I wrote the first article that I was asked to write when I got there. They said we need someone to write this article, and I wrote the article on Y2K. Remember Y2K?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So I wrote the article for the Florida Bar on. I did all the research and interviewed the experts and blah blah blah, and wrote the article on Y2K. Then I saw email show up on the scene, right? Email wasn't a thing back in 1998, 1999. When I was at the Florida Bar's Law Office Management Assistance Service, we would get calls every week from lawyers. And I'm not talking about like old dinosaurs. I'm talking about like, all different ranges
Yeah.
of age and experience. What is email? They wanted to know what is email. They didn't understand what email was.
Mhm.
Um, they is email ethical? Is it a violation of attorney-client privilege to
Mhm.
communicate about confidential client information via email? There were bar committees that were formed to debate whether it was a violation of bar rules or whether it should be a violation of bar rules to communicate about confidential client information via email. I mean, everyone today
Yeah.
laughs at that, right? Um, but that's how it was, right? Um, you know the TV show The Wonder Years?
Yeah, of
Yeah, I
course.
remember that. Right? It was the good old days, the quaint, the wholesome days of the 1950s or whatever, right? If the Wonder Years was created today, it would be like the early 90s.
I
When the Wonder
know.
Years came out, the amount of time from the Wonder Years to when the show came out in the 80s would be like a show about the 90s today.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is things change fast, and in retrospect, we can't imagine a world where they weren't always like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So when I was working at the Florida bar, email was debated. The cloud was debated.
Yeah.
Um, most law firms back then, most law firms did not have websites in
Hmm.
1999. The vast majority of law firms did not have a website in 1999. Facebook did not exist in 1999.
Yeah.
YouTube did not exist. I think YouTube came out in like 2001 or 2002.
Yeah.
Smartphones did not exist. The state of the art. Remember the Palm Pilot? We had the
I
Palm Pilot. I
do.
remember standing there holding my Palm
Yes.
Pilot and my little Nokia cell phone, thinking someday
Yes.
these will be one device. But that's modern. That's the point I'm making is AI is revolutionary.
Hmm.
It's amazing. It's spectacular. It is the most powerful human being invented tool that's ever been invented, arguably in the history of our species,
Yeah.
right? Other than medical inventions that extend human life, AI is probably the next most powerful tool that's ever been invented in human history.
Hmm.
And we're only beginning to understand the power and the ramifications of it. One of the interesting things about AI as compared to all other technologies, right? Think about medical technology, uh, communication technology, transportation technology, and
Hmm.
let's just say those three.
Yep.
Okay. When you have an advance in medical technology, you have an advance in medical technology. Human life gets bigger, better, longer, healthier, more productive.
Hmm.
When you have an advance in communication technology, we are able to communicate faster, more efficiently, at a lower cost, more reliably. I mean, Zoom didn't exist in the two,
Yeah.
right? This is a relatively new thing. I mean, this was the stuff of Star Trek when I was growing up, right? Um, and when you have an advance in whatever I said, the third example, you only get
Transportation. Yeah.
transportation, you only get better, faster, safer, more reliable, more comfortable, less expensive transportation. Each of these technologies exists in their own individual silo. Yes?
Hmm.
AI, every advance in AI advances all other silos. Every advance in AI instantly advances medical technology, instantly advances communication technology, instantly advances transportation technology.
Yeah.
So the thing that people don't really understand about AI, because just for hundreds of years we've thought of technology as being in different silos. The thing that people don't understand about AI, and I know this is a book about triggering referrals and
Hmm.
networking and old-fashioned networking. And I promise you, I'm going to connect the dots in a minute. But this is important to understand for context. And this is part of the power that we have by understanding this stuff. Anyway, so AI, when every time there's an advancement in artificial intelligence technology, it advances all of the other technologies in one giant lift,
Hmm.
as opposed to just an advance in communication or just an advance in medicine or just an advance in transportation or whatever. You get the idea. All
Yep.
right. So, yes, AI is revolutionizing the way we communicate. And here's the thing, there are going to be more and more deep fakes.
Yeah.
there are going to be more and more frauds committed using
Yes.
artificial intelligence. We're already seeing, we manage over 600 of some of the most successful law firms on the planet. And in the last 6 months, we've seen, I think, 5 or 6 instances of cybercrime is on the rise.
Yeah.
Um, and it's because of all of this that good old-fashioned networking is going to work more effectively than ever before
Yeah.
because we're 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 reaching a point and 100 years from now we'll look back at this and we'll say that was cute, that was quaint, why didn't they know about blah blah blah, right? But we're reaching a point where I would say, I mean, at some point in the next 10 years, I would predict there will be a point where you will not be able to conduct a real estate transaction except in person.
Yeah. I was just saying this, I forget to who recently, like we are very, very close to the point, if not there, of like going back to like only being able to believe, like needing to see something with our very own eyes in real life to know it's true.
Well, the only reason we're not there yet is because the vast majority of people are completely unaware of what artificial intelligence is already capable of doing.
Yeah.
And the other thing about artificial intelligence is it's advancing at a rate that is unprecedented.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's an amazing book called Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Jared Diamond.
Love that book.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talks about in that book is, why were a couple of hundred Spaniards able to conquer the entire Inca Empire that had thousands and thousands of warriors, right? And and remember, this is before gunpowder. It wasn't like the Spaniards had machine guns and tanks and the Incas were on horses. Their technology was more or less comparable, right? And to the extent that the Spaniards had, better metallurgy for stronger swords, one strong sword against 100 Inca warriors with wooden spears and whatever, why were the couple of hundred Spaniards able to conquer 10,000 Incas? And the answer is because the Spaniards had a technology that the Incas didn't have, and it was called a horse. And so the Incas sent their scouts out and they reported back and they said, I'm making up the details, but you'll get my point. They said, yes, the Spaniards are 25 miles away. We've got a week before they get here. We can figure this out. We got a week to figure this out. Well, the next day, the scouts said, we don't know how this happened, but the Spaniards are on the mountain.
Yeah.
It traveled a week in a day. And then they said, but they're at the top of the mountain. We got at least until tomorrow before they are going to be at the gates. We got all day to figure this out. Well, in an hour, the Spaniards were at the gates. And then the Incas said, well, the Spaniards are 1,000 yards over there. They can't hurt us. We can negotiate. We can talk. We can discuss. Bam! Snap your fingers. The Spaniards had the Inca king they had captured the Inca king because the horses were able to close the distance faster than the Incas could possibly have imagined or anticipated because they had never seen a person riding a horse before. They had no understanding of how fast things were happening, right?
And that's where we are.
And there's another book called Future Shock by Alvin Toffler that you got to read to understand how fast things are changing in the world today. And the point that I'm making is everyone who thinks about artificial intelligence, and I'm not going to speak about any artificial intelligence specifically right now because, like, literally, by the end of the day, my comments will be outdated.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, not the end of the year, not the end of the month, not the end of the week, the end of the day, things are changing so fast. What artificial intelligence couldn't do yesterday, it's able to do by the end of the day. And so the rate of change is just
Yeah.
most law firm owners are completely unprepared for this. And so they go from one extreme to the other. One extreme is just denial. Oh, this is a fad. This is going to pass. This is no big deal. And they're going to get caught unaware. Or they go to the other extreme, which is all out panic. And oh my
Mhm.
God, the end of the legal industry. No one's going to need lawyers anymore. We're done, which is not true either.
Yeah.
Instead, I see a middle path. And again, there was a time when law firms thought they were going to go out of business because of the electric typewriter.
Oh.
Well, because law firms made a lot of money having secretaries manually typing things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the electronic typewriter came around, and it's like, well, we can't charge an hour to type this document when everyone knows it only takes half an hour. And then word processors, we're going to put all the law firms out of business because we can't charge for someone to spend 30 minutes doing electric typing when everyone knows there's a word processor that can do it in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And artificial technology and artificial intelligence is the way that I see it. It's a magnificent, amazing, powerful, not to be underestimated tool, but it is a tool, right? It's not going to replace the human being. It's, in my opinion, going to make the human being even more valuable in the business relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to commoditize all of the things that don't require the unique skills and abilities, the unique brilliance of a lawyer. It's going to commoditize all that stuff, which is only going to make what lawyers actually do, what lawyers are supposed to do, that much more unique and special and valuable. Because, at least for everyone alive today, and likely for everyone alive in the next generation, our species has evolved over the past several thousand years to communicate in person in ways that don't translate always with
Mm.
technology,
Yeah.
right? You know, I was going to give another example.
Yeah. Go for it. Then
One
I'm
last
going to
example,
change
then
the
I'll shut
topic
up and
on
then
you.
ask the next question. Richard Pryor and Bob Newhart,
Okay.
two very different kinds of, but equally hilarious comedians.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were the first pioneers of recorded comedy albums.
Mm.
Before them, all the comedians said, I'm not going to record my comedy. If I record my comedy, someone will buy a record and listen to it at home, and then they won't come to my show, and I only make money when people come to my live show. You follow?
I'm following.
So Richard Pryor and Bob Newhart were the first comedians to actually record their comedy show. And what they found is that attendance at their live events
Went
went
up.
up dramatically, not just a little bit, a lot. And they found people in the audience would show up and they were like reciting the act along with the comedian because they had listened to the record so many times, and they were like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! I want to go see the show." I mean, haven't we all done that? I mean, you've been to a live concert, right?
Yeah. You sing along.
Sing along. We all do that, right? You don't say, "Well, why would I go see the Rolling Stones in person? I've already heard all their songs once," right? I mean, that's just not
Regret.
how we function as human beings. So my point is, old-fashioned, traditional, low-tech networking in person is going to, in my prediction, based on 25 years of life in the trenches with thousands and thousands, there
Mhm.
isn't a person alive today who's been inside of more small law firms than me.
You got to go after the Guinness Book of World Record on that one.
That's an interesting idea. Carly, make a note. For real. I'm not joking, Carly.
Note taken.
All right. Um, I believe that is precisely because artificial intelligence is going to become so prevalent that old-fashioned traditional networking is going to become even more effective than ever before.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, I know that you're an introvert. I know Ivan's an introvert. I'm an introvert. But we've talked a little bit about being an introvert before. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit more. So I was doing a little bit of looking up things, and you had said previously, humans are social creatures, which I don't think anyone would argue with. The pandemic proved this to us. I know you said that just trying to book a venue is harder now. You have to do it a couple years in advance because people are wanting this in-person getting together. We know that old-fashioned networking in person works. However, an article that I was reading by the American Bar Association shows that 60% of lawyers identify as introverts, while 75% of the general population identify as extroverts. So
the majority of lawyers identify as introverts.
Uh-huh.
The majority of the rest of the world identify as extroverts. I haven't read the article, but that tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see where feeling like, oh, okay, I understand I should network, but I'm an introvert. So my question is, what are the most common obstacles to networking that lawyers face, and how do we overcome them? Because I'm guessing that at least half of the people listening today, half of the people reading this are going to be like, I get networking, but I'm an introvert. So let's talk about some common obstacles and ways to overcome them.
Right. So I don't just identify as an introvert. I really am an introvert, right? I really don't like, so let's talk about what's an introvert, first of all. Most people don't really understand what an introvert is.
Oh, good point.
And most people also don't really understand what real networking is, right? They don't know what networking is. And they don't really understand what it means to build a referral machine through networking.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of misinformation, which causes people to reach entirely incorrect conclusions, which wind up costing hundreds of thousands, if not, hundreds of thousands of law firm owners and hundreds of thousands more lawyers who could be rainmakers in their law firm leave hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, on the table because of this misinformation.
Yeah.
Let's just unpack it a little bit.
Yep.
Okay. First, what does it really mean to be an introvert? Right? What it really means to be an introvert is that you are drained by your interactions with other people rather than energized by your interactions with other people. I am drained when I am around too many people. I do not get energized being around other people. When I'm tired, my go-to thing is not, oh, I'm tired. I need to raise my energy. Let me go out into the world.
No.
When I'm tired and drained, my go-to place is let me escape from the world and be by myself, or be with a few close friends who I feel very, very, very comfortable with, right? Another thing about introverts is people think that introverts are quiet and demure.
Mm,
You don't have to be quiet and demure to be an introvert, right? Being an introvert is really about energy transference and where you get your energy from. Make sense?
yeah.
All right. That's point number one. Point number two. Um, one of the reasons that I've found in 25 years of working with tens of thousands of lawyers who make excuses for why they don't use networking to grow their business or build referral machines, um, they say I'm shy.
Mm,
Being shy is not an impediment to being really effective at networking. Being
yeah.
shy is actually an advantage when it comes to being really effective at networking. People who are the opposite of shy, people who are, let's call it bold and outspoken, have a harder time being effective at networking than people who naturally are shy. So, introvert, shy,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Um, and I'm going to talk about what networking really is, which is kind of the point of this book, right? Because most people don't really understand, they don't know how to build $1 million referral machine because they don't believe it can be done, which is it can.
Yeah.
Got too much
Your
proof.
clients and you know
You,
that, right? Like,
you know that like a year after the Wright brothers first flew at Kitty Hawk,
mhm,
there was a scientific group organized, I think it was in Germany.
mhm,
And remember, this is before the internet. This is before
yeah,
they had telephones. This is before they had, mass media communication. So news had not yet reached
Germany.
that group
Yeah,
of scientists, of the leading scientists.
yeah.
And so they were debating whether the Wright brothers were going to be able to fly the plane or not.
Really? So
They'd
they
already
knew of
done it.
they
The
knew the
plane had
right.
already
Yeah.
flown, and they were debating whether it was possible.
Wow. Now that does surprise me because you're saying they knew of the Wright brothers, but they didn't know that it actually happened yet. That's
They didn't know it had
that's
already happened
interesting.
yet.
Yeah.
Well, because the Wright brothers, I mean, let's face it, no one had ever flown a plane before.
Yeah.
It
No.
was one giant idea, one giant theory. So they were waiting for the right conditions. And they didn't know if they were going to be able to fly it today or tomorrow or this week or next week. The winds are too high. The winds are not high
Yeah.
enough. Blah, 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 blah. Maybe we won't even get a chance to fly it this season. So it's not so crazy to think that the people in Germany wouldn't have got the news.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. The point that I'm making is there are still lawyers and groups of lawyers and bar functions debating whether or not it's possible to build $1 million referral machine for a small law firm. Meanwhile, we have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens
Yeah.
of real life examples of law firm owners who have already done it and are continuing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, they're debating whether it's possible or not.
Yeah.
So the third problem that lawyers have, the first one is they misunderstand what being an introvert is, and they don't
Yep.
understand that being an introvert is exactly the mindset to be in to be effective at networking and building a referral machine. Introverts are more effective. Being shy is your friend. Being shy is your friend. Third, they are debating and discussing, they're still wasting their time debating whether it's possible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little secret. And you see me on stage.
Yep.
I get up on stage in front of, last time, I think when you were there was more than 700 people in the room,
It was a
right?
lot.
You
It was a
can't see the
lot.
corners of the room from stage.
Yeah.
Being on stage is the best place for an introvert to hide out in a crowded room, right? Because you came backstage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while everyone is networking and talking and making small talk and doing all that stuff that we shy introverts hate to do, I'm backstage by myself,
Yeah.
right? And just loving being by myself. Um, so so being an introvert is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Being shy is an advantage. And wasting your time discussing, debating, engaging in discussions and debates about whether or not it's possible, it's just that. It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It makes me think of like with I know we've talked about this a little bit um elsewhere, and I've read about it in other ways too, of like if you're a lot of times you can feel more comfortable in a situation if you're there to help someone. Once I know one of the pieces of advice and some of the books I've worked on with Ivan, it's like, well, go in and you can act like a host rather than a guest. You're going in to help someone, and you're an introvert and you're a great teacher. I've seen you on stage, but you're up there, you're helping people, you're teaching, which I at least feel when I'm doing presentations, it's less draining if you're there with the mindset, right? Is, well, I'm
well,
helping
what
people.
what you're
And
what you're really speaking to is whether you're going there with a purpose or
ah,
and this is why I emphasize the networking.
work. Yeah.
Networking. You're there to work. You're not there to socialize. You're not there to flirt. You're not there to have a good time. You're not there to have fun. You're not there to make friends. You are there for a business purpose. You have a business purpose in being there. And here's the thing that's so cool. If you choose the right kind of networking events to attend, a
Mm-hmm.
well-organized, professionally curated, professionally run networking event. We use BNI as an example a lot, but BNI isn't the only choice. There's a lot of
Mm-mm.
other really well-run, professionally curated uh, networking events to go to. The point is, if you go to one of these things, everyone's there to network.
Yeah.
They're not there to socialize. They're not there to flirt. They're not there to make friends. They're not there to make small talk. They're there to get something accomplished,
Yeah.
right? It's like going to the grocery store with a list and a mission and a purpose versus going to the grocery store and wandering around and you don't know what you're there for and you forgot why you went there in the first place and you wind up buying a bunch of things you don't need and you forget all the things you do need to go home and then you got to go back to the grocery store again or you
Yeah.
say screw it, go out for dinner. Anyway, the point I'm making is like most things in life, when you have a purpose, when you have a clear intention for being there and doing the thing, and you have what to do, your mind focuses on
Mm.
what we're here to do and how we're going to do it. And you don't get distracted by all that other stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I went out fishing yesterday with some friends and we didn't get to a place where there were a lot of fish, but there were a lot of waves.
Mm.
So we let out, 150, 200 feet of anchor line, and the boat is just moving around and
Yeah.
no one's catching any fish. And pretty soon they start getting sick. And then we caught some fish. And all of a sudden, no one's sick again.
No,
No one's sick
they
anymore
forgot. Their
because
mind's
now
not
there's
on it.
something to do. Now there's something to focus on catching fish. Then we didn't catch any fish, and everyone's sick again.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing changed. The only thing that changed was the mind had what to focus on. Right? So if you're shy, if you're an introvert, going number one, fish where the fish are.
Mm.
Go to events that are professionally curated and run by someone who has a financial interest, preferably, in making sure that the networking event is a productive fishing grounds for all of the participants.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to a place to do networking. And I know we're going to talk about this later, but we'll talk about it twice then, because it all kind of feeds together, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you're going someplace where where you can be on purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
hard to be on purpose networking in a social setting. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, it's inappropriate.
yeah.
Um, but if you're in a networking event in an environment that's specifically designed for networking, then it's not awkward or uncomfortable or weird to be on purpose doing networking. And then you follow the instructions we're going to share throughout this book. And then you're on purpose, you're there with a mission, you're following the steps, and your mind isn't getting distracted by all that other stuff because you're just focused and getting things done.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking, let's do this. Thank you for that. Why don't I do one more quick question and then open it up for Q&A just to make sure if people have questions, there's enough time. Does that sound good to you?
Because we started late today. Tomorrow we will start on time because the room will already be set up and we have the lighting figured out. And tomorrow I will remember to bring my external microphone so I sound good.
Okay. So just kind of, even if it like quick, like bulleted, like this, and this, what do you think that are the top things that law firm owners get wrong when it comes to networking and building a referral-based business? So if someone's listening or will be reading, so they can like quickly identify things in their own practice, like what do you see time and again that people are just screwing up?
Well, I think we already covered it.
Yeah.
One is they misunderstand what networking really is.
Yeah.
They go net socializing, and then when it's awkward and weird and uncomfortable and unproductive, they misunderstand and think that networking doesn't work because they were net
Yeah.
socializing.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I try to use a hammer to turn a screw, and call it a screwdriver, it's not a screwdriver, it's a hammer. It's not what it's meant for. All right, so
Yeah.
number one, they misunderstand what networking really is and therefore misinterpret the results they get when they do it, when they go,
Yeah.
go net socializing. That's, I guess, one and two.
Yep.
Number three, they choose the wrong places to engage in networking, and so it feels awkward and weird and slimy and it's not effective.
Yeah.
Number four, I'm sorry, number four,
Yep.
I can't do that finger, so I got to do that. Number four, um, they go into a networking situation without a plan,
Ah, there we
right?
go. Yeah.
And they're just winging it, which makes it feel really uncomfortable and makes it feel really awkward and makes it feel really inauthentic and of course doesn't produce great results. So they get bad results and they say, well, that was a waste of time. And then the last part, number five, is they waste their time discussing, debating, even entertaining conversations about whether or not it's possible to build $1 million referral machine for a law firm when clearly it is, since so many law firm owners have already and are still doing it. So
Yeah.
every minute you engage in that conversation is just a total waste of time.
Yeah. You're just focusing on the wrong things. You're just wasting time completely.
Well, let's have a conversation about whether or not it's possible to communicate with another person through a computer where we can see each other on the camera and the screen, and
Right.
let's just have a big long debate about whether this is possible.
Let's take a deep dive.
Yeah,
Deep
let's
dive
waste
into
a bunch
that.
of time debating. In fact, you know what? Let's get on Zoom to debate whether or not Zoom works.
Thank you. Should we see if there are any questions?
Yes, let's take a few questions and we'll also invite people to write in with their questions because I realize that the West Coast might not be able to join us live. And then tomorrow, Carly will, we can decide if we want to answer the questions before the interview starts or when we get to the Q&A session, Carly can read some of the questions and if you want to write in with your question and specify an accent that Carly should use, that will be more entertaining for us.
Oh no.
my gosh. Pressure on
I've got
Carly.
like 3 accents in my accent bank, y'all. You
What are
don't
your
want
3 go-to accents?
the ones I get more often are like typical Southerner, Georgia Southerner, and then typical posh English, and then we've got like Cockney is pretty much the only ones. I was called on once to do German, and it ended up sounding a little Russian. It was a rough time, guys. Let's get to these questions, RJon. So we have one from Joe Pfeiffer. And he wanted to know from early on, you were talking about AI, and he said, so if AI is like a rising tide that lifts all ships, how can we safely utilize it in our law firms in this way?
Okay, that's a question for the podcast that we're going to do on AI for law firms. And, we just had an AI think tank summit for 3 days. I'm just going to answer that with regard to networking and building a referral machine. Think of AI, one of the ways to think of AI, right? There's all different ways to think of AI. It's not like one homogeneous thing. That's another thing that people don't understand about AI. It's not like AI is one single thing, right? It's lots of different aspects of it. So one of the aspects of artificial intelligence is, think of it like the most reliable, predictable, unemotional, never has a bad day, follows your instructions, never forgets to follow up assistant. So think of going to a networking event as part of the process of building a referral machine. Going to networking events is not how you build a referral machine. It's one of the things you do to build the referral machine. Another part of building a referral machine is the follow-up, which we as human beings tend to be terrible at, right? We tend to be good at the beginning part, which is creating the opening, and then not very good at remembering to follow up and follow up and follow up. And you can use artificial intelligence to essentially replace a human being to assist you and, supplement your own memory to make sure you remember to follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. You literally could be at a networking event recording, just have your recorder going the whole time. And while the recorder is going, you're just mentioning things to follow up on. Hey, Carly, I'll remember to send you a copy of my book when I get home. And then artificial intelligence, you can say to your AI agent, listen to this recording and make a list of all of the people that I said I'd follow up with. And it can give you a list. And then depending on what you said you were going to follow up, you could even say, great, order those books and send them to those people. And artificial intelligence set up the right way by someone who knows more than me about how to set up artificial intelligence agents could literally set up an agent for you that, bam, sends the books out, as an example.
That's great. I actually just saw an AI app for your Apple Watch that will do exactly that. Will listen in on your networking conversations and make notes of all the things that you promise and all the things you talked about. Anyway, that's really cool. Yeah. Another one we got, this was from an anonymous. They wanted to know, they identify more with somebody who is more shy or introverted, and they want to know, how do I network without feeling fake or exhausted?
Yeah, well, I suspect that question came in before my last little part of what I was saying, because I feel like I addressed it there. I'll repeat it very briefly here. One, go to an event that is decidedly, intentionally, unapologetically being organized as a networking event. And we all know what we're doing here, right? No one is trying to figure out a way to convert their kid's birthday party into a networking event. No one's trying to figure out how to convert someone's wedding into into a networking event. No one's trying to figure out how to convert, an award ceremony into a networking event. Go to an event where it is clearly we are here to engage in networking because we all want to build a referral machine to grow our businesses. And that's explicitly what the purpose of the event is. That way you don't feel weird about the next part of the advice, which is go there with a very clear plan of what you're going to do. You're going there and you're going to do step one, which we'll cover in chapter 2 of this book. And you'll do step 2, which we're going to cover in chapter 3 of this book. And you're going to do step 3, which we're going to cover in chapter 4 of this book. And then you have like a recipe you're following. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We're going to lay it out for you.
Can I add a follow-up question to that in case, because sometimes I think we do that. And is it as simple as, like in your response, I'm wondering, is it kind of, is there an assumption baked in that like, and then after this networking event where you have been working, you give yourself a little bit of time to like recharge your battery, or don't go from a networking event to another big thing where you're around people.
Well, now you're talking about chapter 5 of the book that we haven't got to yet, which is part of the process. Part of the process.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'm teasing. It's like working out, right? You're an avid exercise person, right? And part of any well-conceived exercise routine is deliberately scheduling time to rest and recover, right? Most of the gains that a person gets from working out aren't happening at the gym. They're happening during the rest and recovery time. If you're just working out, you're not going to get great results. You have to work out and give your body a chance to rest and recover. Same thing with networking. If you're going to be, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And if you're going to build $1 million, look, if you're just going to go out and network to sell someone you network, if you're just going to go out and do networking to tell someone you tried it, then none of this matters. And for that matter, this book doesn't matter either. But if you're really serious about building, no joke, no exaggeration, $1 million a year of gross revenue coming to your firm reliably year in and year out, year in and year out, year in and year out, building a referral machine that you'll actually even be able to sell to someone someday, and they'll be able to buy it from you. And as long as they keep servicing the equipment, it will keep producing $1 million of revenue for them year in and year out, year in and year out. That's an asset you can build. If you're really serious about this, going back to the Wright brothers example, because it can be done, because it's being done, then you treat this like a marathon, not a sprint, right? And part of that is making sure you build time to engage in the first part of the networking, and then give yourself time to engage in the second part of the networking, and then give yourself time to engage in the third part of the networking, and then give yourself time to rest and recover from the first, the second, and the third parts, so you can then go back and do the first part again, and do the second part again, the third part again, and then rest and recover, and you get the idea.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amazing. Okay, I had one other that I had anonymously from before we started, when somebody found out that we were doing this one. And they wanted to know, they live in a very small market. They don't have a lot of local networking groups around them, local networking events. Does this still apply to somebody in a smaller market? And if so, what do they do?
Yes. I mean, people have been, look, business owners, entrepreneurs, people have been building successful law firms for more than 1,000 years. This is not like a new thing. Lawyers have been practicing law for more than 1,000 years. People have been building successful law firms for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I mean, Abraham Lincoln had a law firm, right? He had to do marketing. The marketing that Abraham Lincoln did to build his law firm did not involve social media, right? It involved a referral machine. He built a referral machine. That's how people built law firms for hundreds and hundreds of years. Um, Business owners have been networking for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years even, right? So in many instances, and look, I don't know your specific exact market. Well, if you say, well, my market is I live in the North Pole by myself and there's no one for 1,000 miles in any direction. Okay, well then we got to talk about an online networking initiative for you, right? But your market might be small, but presumably it has at least one accountant. At least it has one insurance agent. At least it has one uh, HVAC repair person. At least it has one plumber. At least it has one electrician. At least it probably has at least one handy person kind of person. It probably has at least one auto body shop or someone who repairs cars. At least it probably has one doctor, one this, one that, one candlestick maker, right? All of these people are engaging in conversations with their customers, clients, patients, passengers, diners, whatever they call them. These people are engaging in conversations with the people they do business with and learning about problems and opportunities and issues going on in the lives of these people, and it's uncomfortable to be the accountant. It's uncomfortable to be the insurance agent. It's uncomfortable to be the doctor. It's uncomfortable to be the plumber. It's uncomfortable to be the electrician. It's uncomfortable to be the person who is learning about someone else's problem and not be able to say, I know who you should talk to. Right? And so even if you're in a small market, there's no reason this shouldn't work. Um, and and if you're in a market where there's no one who has taken the initiative to create a formal networking program, well, then that's even better news because that means you can be the person who creates the formal networking program and really supercharge your networking because you get to be in the middle of the whole thing. I mean, that gives you a huge advantage. And BNI, I'm not here to sell BNI franchise opportunities, but you can buy a BNI franchise and they'll give you basically BNI in a box. Here's how to go do it.
Okay. Awesome.
Other questions?
Thank you. Those are the questions that we have for today. I know we'll have some more tomorrow once we get our West Coasters up and running. Is there anything else, Heidi, that you want to go over? Anybody in chat? I know we've still got some people there. Are there any additional that you want us to address today? Otherwise, I think that's a really good button until tomorrow.
We can end now, or I'm happy to ask one last question if RJon, if you're up for it.
Question.
One last question?
Go for it.
Okay. People love to hear stories. And can you give a case study of a law firm owner? Because I know this has happened, right? Many a times. A case study of a law firm owner whose life has been transformed after adopting this very intentional, like, networking strategy to get these referrals.
I'm sure I can, but like off the top of my head, it's like there's so much to choose from that the answer is yes, I can, but instead of just trying to conjure something up, I'm going to ask Carly to post on our membership discussion group amongst the 600 members that we work with, and let's see if we can get some people who are willing to maybe share their stories. Because I mean,
That
we've
would
got
be
lots
great.
of stories from all different practice areas. We've got people I know. I mean, I know we've got people who obviously build a referral machine.
Mhm.
I want to be clear about something, by the way. We keep talking about networking and referral machine, but I want everyone to understand these are two different things.
Mhm.
Networking is one of the things you do to build a referral machine. Yeah. The objective of this book is not to help you just be better at networking.
Yeah.
The objective of this book is to help you be better at networking and help you be better at building follow-up systems and to be better at building systems that mine and extract and trigger and instigate referrals predictably, reliably, quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter for years and years and years to come. So you have a referral machine. Yeah. I don't want this to turn it into just networking. And
Yeah.
we have chapters planned in the outline that will address each of these different elements of the machine, right? It's kind of like saying, it's sort of like talking about your automobile, talking about your car, but you only want to talk about the engine. Well, without the transmission, without the brakes, without the steering, without the air conditioning, without the entertainment system, you know, it's not going to be a really great car. We're talking about building a referral machine. Networking is just the engine that powers it, but it's not the whole machine. So when you're asking me this question, can I share stories of people who have used networking to build their successful law firms? The answer is yes, and also the answer is no. Yes, I can share examples, and I'm sure we can find dozens of case studies, probably more than dozens, maybe even hundreds of case studies of lawyers who have used networking as the engine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we're really here to talk about is more important than that, more profitable than that, right? More long-term sustainable than that, which is we have dozens and dozens and dozens of people in all different practice areas who have built referral machines that keep referrals coming and coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. I mean, how to manage a small law firm, we've had a waiting list for the better part of 3 years, largely because our referral machine just keeps working and working and working and working and working. Once you get the referral machine working, I mean, you practically have to go out of your way to get it to stop working. You can, once you get it built right, it'll sustain a lot of abuse and neglect. You shouldn't abuse it, you shouldn't neglect it. But the point is it can, because you get the momentum going, you get the whole thing working. Anyway, I just don't want this to just devolve into just networking. It's not just networking. The book is not called How to Build Your $1 Million Networking Machine. It's how to build your $1 million referral machine for law firm owners. Networking, of course, is one part of that machine.
Oh, that was good, RJon. All right, guys. So tomorrow, I think we're going over a little more the simple business model for creating predictable revenue for your law practice using only networking and a very small budget. Kind of the beginning of this overall machine. Heidi, remind me, how many chapters is the book? We've got a lot to cover, so this is going to be very content rich.
Oh, very content rich. As of right now, we have like 18 chapters. So
which we need to whittle down to 10.
Yeah. So we probably aren't going to talk on all of those in these episodes, but we'll be addressing a lot of it, touching on.
Yes.
We give everyone just a little sneak preview of what comes next, what comes next, what comes next.
You want me to?
I need to be reminded. I know, of course, but for everyone else.
Yeah, give us kind of your chapter headings, Heidi.
Yeah. So what you had just mentioned too, there's the simple business model for creating predictable revenue, creating your team 100, your magic statement, your best referral sources will be excited to know what you do. Networking will work 1,000,000 times better when you pick a niche or a niche, beginning with the end in mind. Boring systems beat energetic sweat. The lost art of the follow-up note, seemingly random follow-ups that feel great, how to make a good referral, whether to accept or not accept a referral fee, becoming a center of influence or a good person to know, where to go and where not to go for networking, which we started to get into that of like choosing your networking wisely, what to do once you get to a networking event, then Bob Berg's 10 feel-good questions, installing yourself in someone's network, and then how to handle a referral when you actually get one. So we cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, a lot of people that get all excited about networking, so they can get referrals. They accidentally fall over backwards into a referral, into receiving a referral, and then they don't really know what to do with it. And then they wonder why the machine stalls out.
Yeah.
You
Why
gotta,
networking doesn't work for me.
yeah, networking doesn't work for me because someone referred some business to me and I didn't really handle it the right way. I don't mean that you didn't handle the legal work right. You did a beautiful job with the legal work. You were the world's best lawyer and you saved their day. You saved their you were a superhero with the legal work. But you didn't handling intake for a referred prospective new client is not the same thing as handling intake from a prospective new client who responded to an advertisement or something like that.
Excellent. All right, guys. So you heard it here. Come back same time tomorrow. We're going to get into a lot of these topics. Obviously, not all tomorrow. We're running this one for, I think, 9 days. So we've got 9 straight sessions. You don't want to miss a single one of them. If there's somebody who's not here that you think should be here, I'm going to post the link in the chat that you yourself signed up for in order to register. Please feel free to share this far and wide if there are people who should be here who aren't here. And if you have any questions, feel free to also send those to me directly. I'm going to put my direct email in chat. That's carlym@howtomanage.com. Let me know. I'll compile your questions. If you are listening to this and you're on the West Coast, so you were not awake early this morning when we started this one, feel free to send those to me and I'll make sure we get to them at the Q&A at the end. Heidi and RJon, thank you so much for agreeing to do this so that we can all be flies on the wall and kind of get an inside peek on what it looks like to build a best-selling book, as well as answering these questions that are going to make these law firms a whole lot more profitable. Any final thoughts?
No, I just wanted to have a little debrief with everyone so we can do better tomorrow. I will do better tomorrow by making sure that I remember to bring the external microphone. What do I need to do in terms of lighting? Is the lighting okay, or I need to figure out a lighting solution? Jennifer?
I would prefer a lighting solution. We definitely can have a discussion about it right after.
Well, let's just have it now, so right after I can get out of here.
Okay.
Should we stop the live,
who wants
Alex?
to like learn about the practical realities of how something like this is done in the real world,
Sure.
this is how it's done. I'm sorry, it's done not glamorous. It's how it is.
So the quick and dirty for everyone who's watching, and this is helpful for everyone, is that you want to you've got to think about the light source, you've got to think about the environment, and you've got to think about the aesthetics, right? So if you're in RJon's case, he's got a light shining above him, and all that does is age him. It gives him, and not just him, all of us. If I had a light on above me, you would see all of my 55 years. So you want to not have the darkness happen here. So how do you do that? You put a light source out you. Now, if you have a window, natural light's always great, but we can't control the sun because it does its own thing. So we look for artificial light. So in a quick and dirty, you would get a lamp, which is what I had asked RJon earlier, and you'd put it on the other side of the monitor so that you have a light shining on you. It evens you out, and you can mess with colors. You can do the yellow tones, you can do the white tones, you can do the colored things. So what I would recommend for RJon is that we've got to find a source of light, not to blast him, because you don't want it to be blasted. You just want to be illuminated and to get rid of those dark shadows that are happening from the lights above you. The second thing I would say is
Wait,
that
hold
the
on,
sound.
wait, just wait. So, Carly,
Yes.
pretend like you're an AI agent and you heard that,
Yes.
and you have the address of the house we're renting down here for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have it, you can get it from Tanya. And just order the light kit to be delivered today or tomorrow. Today, preferably, so I can get here a little early tomorrow and get it set up. And we can do a little test before we get rolling.
Perfect.
And maybe we can go live with the test if anyone wants to see how that works.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be great. So that's ideal. The second thing with lighting, and if you look at Carly and you look at Heidi, what you might notice is that they have like a soft glow behind them. And if, as RJon mentioned, you see the blue light on my gray curtain, the visual interest of that is that it's not just visually interesting, but it's also a way to pop you away from the wall, because we live in a 2D world when we're online. In person's always better, right? It's 3D, it's much better. But because we do live in an online world, what can you do to enhance the aesthetic of the room and the lighting? Having a light behind you. In my case, I have a light that's kind of shining sideways so that it makes, I think, a visual interest with the curtains. I'm going to give away a bunch of, oh, Carly, you don't have the light on, but Heidi does. But Heidi's got a light on behind her. And if you look over her shoulder, you can see like this tiny little glow over her shoulder. That's because
Do you
there is
want
a
me to
lamp.
swivel?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you want to blind everybody, but there is a lamp on the floor behind her so that there's a visual pop separating her from the wall that's back there. And so that's another thing with lighting. And in RJon's case, if he had colored lighting, like I have blue lighting, Heidi's got a natural light. Carly does too when she has it on. Those are the kinds of things that you can do to improve the experience. And that's what we're trying to deliver, by the way. Anytime you're online, you're on camera, you're trying to deliver an experience. So the second thing we're looking at is the sound. And as RJon mentioned, he doesn't have his mic on him. But when he does, holy smokes, hold back, because he's got a great voice on mic. Why does his voice sound so hollow? It's because the sound waves
Because
are
I have a terrible
bouncing.
voice in person, but a great voice on mic.
No, because the sound waves are bouncing all over the hard surfaces. And I can tell when I hear someone talk, whether they're in a room with a lot of hard surfaces or if they have soft surfaces. How do we control that? Anyone who's been in an audio video design session with me knows that I will say, hey, do you got a couple of pillows? Do you have a towel? And the reason why is because when you're sitting at your desk and you may not have soft surfaces, you can put two pillows on either side of your monitor, and that buffers some of the sound. We're not soundproofing, we're
Yeah,
sound buffering.
this is where I'm at.
Yeah, high ceilings. I mean, it's the nightmare right there. That's my nightmare scenario that RJon's in right now. A bunch of
Big
hard.
empty room.
You got carpet though. That's a win. You got carpet. If you had tile, it would be the ultimate nightmare. But yeah, so those are the things that you consider. The other thing with sound is that you put the towel or some kind of cloth on the desk, because that's another hard surface. Now, in my studio, this curtain behind me is actually a sound buffering curtain, so it's very thick. And you want to introduce these things. But in RJon's case, he doesn't have a choice. And you may not have a choice either where you're at. But knowing these things, it helps you better prepare for any, if you go in any room, you know, oh, here's what I need to do to improve the quality of the sound. Now, the other thing with the mic is proximity. So right now you're going to hear, you can still hear me, but you're going to hear more of the room. The reason is because it's the proximity effect with a microphone. So that's why when you can get a mic, you can get it close. Great. Now you may be like, you know, Jennifer, I really don't like, you know, this is not my look. Heidi has a microphone, but you don't see it. But we made sure that it was pointing toward her mouth because we found out where the hot spot was on the mic. And so we made sure that she's going to sound as good as possible, not having the mic in the shot. So these are things to consider. And then the third thing is
Hold
obviously
on.
framing.
So, Carly,
Yes.
we need
Lighting for
the
the
light
front.
kit from in front.
Light
Get with
kit for the
Jennifer to
back.
figure out what we're going to do in terms of getting something to make this thing pop, because this is two-dimensional.
It's stark. And then the third thing is your set, right? So even though you think, well, I'm just in my office, when you're on camera, you now have a studio set. So what can you do to enhance that? So if we take Heidi, for example, we had her introduce a plant in that lower corner and hide a wall plug. We had her put the light on the floor. We had her lit. She has a window right by her and it was blowing her out and making her really shadowed on one side. And so we did all of these things to kind of enhance so that she could look and sound as good as possible. But these are simple, subtle things, and most people will never know them. But again, we're trying to deliver an experience. So what's the experience that you want to deliver? What you may be like, I don't like plants, Jennifer. That's okay. You don't have to have plants in your studio. You know, I don't like colored lights. That's okay. You don't have to have colored lights. You know, I don't like those little twinkly lights over there. You don't have to have them. Find what works for you and deliver that experience as best as you can with the equipment that you have or affordable things that you can either find around the house. And light kits nowadays are not that pricey. And if nothing else, get an old lamp at the, you know, at the Goodwill and you'll be good to go with a colored light bulb and you're good to go. So those are the three things that we consider when we're doing an audio video design session, which you just got the fast version of that, thanks to RJon.
Thank you. All right. Heidi, what else can we do to make this better for you tomorrow besides start on time?
Well, I guess that would be the top thing, is making sure we're able to get through the questions that I have.
Well,
That
I'll get
would
it all
be
set up before we get, I
Yeah.
will have this set up before 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Perfect. Perfect. And yeah, I mean, this has been, we tested this before, but could everybody hear me typing? Because I type even as I listen.
I
So
did not hear anything.
okay, so then that's good, because you're talking, I'm typing, and that is helpful for me.
I
So
was distracted by the plant on the floor.
blame Jennifer.
I like the plant on the floor.
Plant on the floor distracted me from the sound of typing.
Well, then good. Then thank Jennifer.
Nice.
All right. So otherwise we're good?
Otherwise, we're good. The only other question that I have, RJon, is for tomorrow. The intro we read today is quite long. Do we want to do the same intro tomorrow, or can we pare it down? Or should we pare it
Let's
down?
do it. My suggestion is do it
Hmm.
again, because that way you have more practice. I know you practiced it a few times, but I know you well enough to know that if you do it a couple more times, it'll get better. And ultimately, we want to turn this into something that'll have some shelf life,
Mm-hmm.
not just a one and done thing. So I don't mind. And look, the people who are going to, I'm trying to find a way to say this nicely without trying to be funny. The people who are going to show up live and suffer through your intro a second and a third time will be rewarded at the end with all kinds of bonus materials like this and live Q&A and other stuff like that. But
Perfect.
mostly, let's not forget, our main objective is our main objective. And our main objective is to produce the book
Yes.
that the publisher needs us to do. If we produce a show, also, that's just bonus.
Perfect. Okay. Same time tomorrow?
See y'all tomorrow.
So is that 8:30 Eastern? Like, so are we logging in a full half hour early like today, or 20 minutes? And either's fine with me.
I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna log in a little bit early tomorrow because I need to get the lighting set up with Jennifer and Carly. You don't need to be here for that.
Okay.
So if you log in, 5 minutes before 9, that should be good to go.
Mm-hmm. But Heidi, your Word document to RJon today with all the questions and the topics, that was great for me. So just putting that out there, loved that. That was helpful. I
figured I'd do that every day. I didn't see a point in doing it all of them in advance, because I figured you have to adjust as you go each day. So I'll do another one like this, and I will carry over some of what we haven't covered. And RJon, if we have a second, when you said we need to pare it down to 10, you mean for the episodes here, or do you mean, are you wanting the book to be only 10 chapters?
I thought that we wanted the book to be about 10 or 12 chapters and not 18 chapters. But I mean, whatever, as long as as long as it's relevant, as long as it's engaging, as long as it's good, it can be as many chapters as people want it to be.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes too, right now, what we have is broken out as chapters. Sometimes they get merged together. What we think was a chapter becomes just a section, or we just say, oh, we'll keep this out. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you all. This is great. And thank you for all the expert support in getting this set up, because normally, as some of you have seen, I do look all washed out, and it's not great. So I feel like I've been in expert hands of doing the best with not an ideal setup here. So thank you.
Jen is the best.
You're welcome. It's good.
All right, guys. Well, then RJon, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30, and Heidi will see you probably sometime right-ish before then.
Yeah, I'll probably log in
not before then. So.
Yeah, 10 minutes before. So enjoy golfing, RJon.
I probably will not enjoy golfing.
Suffer through golfing, RJon.
I'm going along to be a good sport with the people who like golfing.
At least it's not gardening, I guess.
That would
See you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.